Bit of that. Easy peasy. Put that up there. All right, it's a best of 3 TvZ, starting off on El Dorado. In the bottom left, it is Byun. In the bottom right, it is Rogue. So, was keen on this replay because, one, it was not cast at the time of the tournament, so it might be fresh to all of us. 2, it has a Zerg player, which is rare in the weeklies that I cast on a more regular basis. And 3, it's Rogue, who I have not cast in a while. When he came back into StarCraft, I did make it a point to try and cast some of his replays, but honestly, he just fell off. He does not play in the European timed tournaments, which is mostly what I cast. Byun does, because Byun has always been a machine, but there's just always been, let's say, like 4 or 5 Korean players who are willing to play in the middle of the night Korea time. And Rogue, I don't think has ever really been one of those guys. I could be wrong, I could be misremembering, but pretty sure that's the case. Pretty sure. He might have actually played in some of them when he first started to come back. That sounds vaguely familiar. I might have speculated that it was, just an attempt to get those reps in because he was going to have to catch up to everyone. But at this point, I don't even know how long it's been since he's been in military, but he's been playing StarCraft steadily once again for a while. And I assume is well, not back up to his old form, because his old form could just come out of nowhere and win championships and then drop out of round of 32 GSL the next season. And I don't think he is able to just come out of nowhere and win championships at this point in time. But then again, we haven't had a lot of tests for that. So he's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with Rogue. We know a lot about Byun. And one thing we know about Byun is that his TvZ is quite good. Oh, I was like, why is the mule not making a sound? All right, his TvZ is good. It's also kind of sometimes unique. He's one of the players who is still willing to do some outside of the 3cc 111 builds, which frankly still make up the majority of TvZs. He does bring out the even like a 2-base 211. I feel like it's been a while, so maybe this was like 4 months ago, but still, like, he does still bring that out, surprisingly enough. Not a meta build whatsoever, but one that can surprise. And one that if you were going to bring it out, you might bring it out in a map like this, just because it is close by air, which is not really a valid phrase anymore, but I do it anyway. But we'll see. It is not a 211. It is going to be a 3cc without that second gas, so this does look like a very normal 3cc Hellion. And just because Byun... Okay, well, that's not normal. Just because Byun doesn't always do this doesn't mean that he obviously, it's not his bread and butter as well, because it's just what TvZ is nowadays. But the 3cc, the third V out here, that is unique. Glad there's something else to talk about. Wow, okay. Well, this is kind of a funny thing. Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen a Terran player or Byun go for his third CC on the low grounds this fast, right? The typical 3cc build is off of... I mean, you have one Reaper and a Marine. Look at what you have, right? All right, you cannot defend that third CC from, like, 8 lings. So that's what's so dangerous about this. Obviously, the Hellions come out, but then even only 2 Hellions wouldn't stop, for instance, 16 to 20 lings from stopping this third command center. But the thing about these command centers on location, which is funny to say for this one, but obviously there's like minerals blocking where it's supposed to go. The Zerg just doesn't expect this. So they actually don't scout it a lot of the time. The Overlord pathing that they will take for their Overlord scout will not stay around kind of the more forward triangle third area. Now this one does, but it's still out of range. So this was gotten away, no problem whatsoever. And I gotta imagine that it would be a Zerg players in their interest to actually go after that third CC if they scouted it. If they scouted that 20% done, I gotta imagine a Zerg player would be like, well, no, you ain't. I'm going to make like 20 lings. And that's going to be worth, because it's going to cancel, let's say, like a 40% finished command center. That's a lot of lost time. That's the SCV kill. That's the 100 minerals out of the cancel. And I think that would be worth the lings that would usually be drones. But if you don't know, you can't decide. And that's what happened there. Byun gets away with this, no problem. Even uses the SCV that built the command center to mine out the minerals that were blocking it, which just is such a freebie. It's an insane freebie. I mean, I'd be actually very upset if I watched this as Rogue. And now, the fact that it's a third CC is not surprising. That's not something that Zerg players typically expect to be able to stop. They would have to really all in, typically, to stop a 3 CC from really getting the reward. But the fact that you get on location on the gold here as fast as you possibly can, that's a really big boon. That really can't be overstated. It's a tremendous difference having to wait for the orbital build here and then lift it all the way over and then have to send maybe 2 SCVs to mine it out as quickly as possible. It's so different. Anyway, moving on from that, because that is done. Nothing Rogue can do about it. 6 Hellions and a couple of Banshees. No Cloak. I did mention this in a previous cast, but Byun really does seem to be favoring more and more in this matchup the non-Cloak Banshee. He's one of the guys who will throw out the Banshee in general. For the whatchamacallit, the TVP matchup. There we go. The other matchup that occurs. He is one of the ones who will actually go for Banshees, and then you do usually get Cloak in that matchup. You would usually get Cloak in this matchup too, but it seems like we got kind of a new experiment going on. Byun's third CC is woefully under-defended. 6 Hellions would absolutely do the trick in defending that, but did not realize Lings were being sent on over there, so 3 SCVs did go down. No mod here, because this was not cast live. So the poor gamers don't bother with it. But the Lings, not making up for the fact that third CC was on location. Definitely not doing enough damage for that, but the more that he can get away with that, the better. Should not happen again, though, honestly. At this point in time, I think it is safe for Byun to rally to his third CC. So you'd have to find, like, a really, really close timing where the army has just moved out and the reinforcements aren't big enough to stop a Ling, perhaps Ling Baneling run by, actually. As we do have Banelings, obviously, not going into Roach, so you need those Banelings. You have 1-1 on the way for Rogue, but it's not very fast at all. I mean, Byun didn't just get away with what looks like a 3cc, like, on location. He also got away with 2 engineering bays after that third CC by the looks of things, so just the fastest, greediest thing that you can do as a Terran player. And he's not going to just take this and run with it and try and get further ahead into a faster fourth and then, like, a super defensive play, which I'm sure could work out. Now, Byun is going to use all of this power that he's gained basically for free to go into a very powerful Arax. Like, I'm going to call it now. I'm going to do the pro gamer thing. I don't think Rogue can win against this. I think Rogue is screwed. But we'll see. Not so good so far. Losing Overlords, getting supply block, not enough creep to actually take care of the army as he tries to go after it. Hatchery's going to have to be canceled. That's never going to happen. I can tell you that. And the creep still is not really helping here. The tank not even destroyed. Oh my god, this is a disaster. This is a freaking disaster. But this is the worst possible scenario, I think. That 3cc double engineering bay gotten away so quickly. He's actually going for a 4th CC pretty fast behind this 8 racks and didn't even get the additions onto the barracks for the 8 racks. So that's kind of a twist on things. You still would lack that second factory that you would usually need if you go into a longer TvZ, so there is still a kind of a downside to doing this, but it does seem like Byun is going to get the best of both worlds. He's going to, well, straight up win. Yep, there you go. Straight up win with the 8 racks and have the possibility of macro behind it. So that was no contest whatsoever. Rogue just, he really needed to do something about that 3rd CC or be equally as greedy, which I'm going to admit I was looking at the Terran more than the Zerg, but I'm pretty sure Rogue did everything that would be, like, normal for Zerg. I'm not sure how much greedier he could have been. Maybe the Lings that he sent over the 3rd CC, which weren't worth it, could have been drones faster, but maybe you actually push off that Baneling nest farther. You didn't need to get some triple hooks faster. I mean, it's just, I actually don't know. This seems like a especially cruel build when you get away with it at the very least for the Zerg player to handle. So that was quick and easy right there. Going into game 2 once I find it. I think we did see this map actually, but then it was rotated out of the weeklies for whatever reason. So Okay. Well, on the bottom left, we do have Byun, who's now up 1. And the top right, it is Rogue, who just got obliterated by as fast as 3rd CC you could possibly get into an Arax. Really didn't stand a chance. Gonna look to not do that again, but it's also unlikely that Byun will ever try and get away with a 3rd CC on the low ground. That's something you bring out once, and then you can't really do it again without being at least scouted. I suppose it could still be a dilemma for the Zerg player if they scout that 3rd CC going down on location to actually produce the army that would need to be produced to take it down. And maybe that's still a question, but as I said in the first game, I think it would have been worth it. Just the Rogue didn't know. Now, I do remember this map 100% being played because I did not realize that there was this little worker ramp that existed until someone pointed it out. So you see Rogue using that to grab his natural at his 3rd, though. I mean, I'm pretty sure this isn't super normal, but then again, I could see why you would do it. Well, yeah, it actually doesn't seem like too bad of a natural, honestly. It's still, the anticipated one is going to be this one, right? We'll see if that's true, if Byun's Reaper directly goes to the natural or to the 3rd. So far, not queued up for anything. But this makes sense. First of all, it's half gold, right? So that there's a reason that you really want to get this. And then the question, as always, is the trade-off worth it? So sometimes those full gold bases are just out in the middle of the map, and it's incredibly dangerous to take it, right? But the half gold, half blue, it's protected on the right side by debris. On the left side, that just means that the Terran has to walk the farthest possible on this map if they want to attack on the left side. And then if they want to take a bit of a shorter pathway, they got to go through this base, but it is a pretty small choke. So to be fair, both players would have trouble moving into each other for this. But one of the other benefits of getting your natural in a head position is that your creep spread already going to cover it. So Byun would have to wait for the creep spread, and then Rogue could have the opportunity to not have to use the choke, and then by the time Byun actually gets to the choke, you know, he's the one that has to push through, and Rogue's waiting with, like, billions of Hydras and Banelings and whatnot. So I could see this actually being a typical normal natural. And Byun did send his Reaper to it, but to be fair, I didn't check if his Reaper was just queued to the main. So maybe it is normal, maybe it isn't. Cat's getting in as much trouble as she possibly can so that I can't concentrate. So the 2-way ramp. Yeah, you can go up it because I think we had a probe scout up it in a game that I missed. So, which is actually pretty important for other matchups. Obviously, in this one, you don't have any SCV. Well, sometimes you do. And Rogue would be one of the Zerg players you might want to SCV scout, to be fair. But more so like in PvP, where sneaking a probe in to scout for the pylon numbers or the technology could actually be very important. There's a little sneaky pathway there. We do have another 3cc build from Byun. His 3rd CC, though, is safely in the main. It is probably going to take over this base, too, though. That makes a lot of sense. And then you can see that the minerals are lowest in the pathway area, so you do open up the pathway pretty quickly to go ahead and defend this. It's not like you're trapped out and always going around for it. The Reaper has full knowledge at this point of exactly what's going on. It might even stick around long enough if the drones don't kill it, and the drones aren't going to try. Okay. Killed a drone. Died to the speedlings. That was inevitable. Was not able to see the next round of drones, but there's nothing else that's suspicious that would tell him that he needs to watch out for anything but drones. Looks like I didn't really understand what the rocks were. I thought they were the big ones, like 3 of the big ones, but they are 6 of the small ones. So 7. Counting's hard. But the point is, you know, either way, I guess, is that if you break one, you break the rest of them. So it's not as hefty as it looks. But it would be in the best interest for the Zerg player to break this down immediately, because while the natural could be a point of attack for the Terran, obviously this could also be a point of attack. I mean, the Zerg player having to only come in from one direction is never its goal. So you got to cover your bases there. And this is where I might assume Byun... Well, I don't want to say that. But anyway, there is a lack of creep spread here. Byun can abuse that with his real push, But he might just go ahead and stick to the 4th base pressure, which would be more common. But it's kind of different on this map, isn't it? Banshee number 1 is just going to float right past a queen, and 2 queens now, actually, which seems unwise. Did bother to research Cloak, but the timing, Jesus. Oh, boy. That was a bit odd, actually. I wonder if he misrallied and then just had to kind of go with it. Also awkward is this 3rd CC is not yet protected. A single Ling having some fun. Killing in 1 SEV in exchange for the 3, I guess, killed by the Banshee. Excuse me. Wait, stop that. She likes to bite my sketch pad. She likes to bite paper, is what we've discovered. So I've given her a chew stick, like a dog. Except she doesn't use it. Actually, I do have it. Alright, no action on the way. Okay. See? True stick. Go get it. Alright. I could have paused. This is a replay, but, you know, it's TvZ, and we're kind of waiting for the ball to really get rolling. As it does look, it looks like Rogue is in a much better position this game. He's not getting 8 racks as I am speaking. That's already better. But, still a little shy in the creep spread is what I'm worried about. We do have Byun almost ready to go. Medivacs are about to pop out, and he could do at least a small push, perhaps leading up to this area. Maybe use the rocks to protect the tank a little bit. The Hellions actually doing a great job clearing up creep spread in this other area that I was pointing out could be the attack path. I mean, the benefit of attacking here is that there really isn't a lot of creep spread, and it would hit a vital artery of the Zerg player should you get close enough. Killing that natural or stopping the reinforcements from the natural in the main is a pretty big deal. Well, kind of from the main, I guess. You can still go that way. But this one would kind of make it a little more difficult, I think, for Rogue to actually get this full surround. So let's say that you do park your tank up there, and you have to come all the way down there. So, I mean, I feel like both choices are actually kind of valid. It does look like we're going for the quick cancel in this base here. Kind of forgot that the hatchery was changed in cost, and the cancel doesn't look right. But this is, okay, I can see where the tank's going to use this one. Now, this is on creep, though. The Marines are going to have to run away, and this is a pretty nice surround. Coming in from 3 different angles. Looks a lot better. A lot better. Rogue was totally prepared for that. He has been on 77-ish drones for about a minute, I want to say. So he has just been pumping out army. Without contest, there's nothing else really for Rogue to be setting up here. So army, now technology, and with the, I guess, denial of this push, feels very comfortable getting up to 83 drones, which would be nicer as we get into that hive technology. But it just, like, totally prepared for this. Byun's push, not really catching Rogue off guard, that's for sure. It can be a battle of a bit of back and forth, so Rogue could run a Banelings. This is not the case, though. Byun actually getting a little too overly aggressive, to be honest. Maybe thinking his drop had distracted more than it did. But Rogue has plenty of army. Has not run a Banelings, and is ready to pounce on the army that is trying to take this high ground. And I don't think Byun really respected it as much as he should. We do only have 3 CC for Byun, as he did go back into that 8 racks. The 4th CC, not yet on the way, but does seem to be his plan. This is going to be off creep, so that should be better for Byun, but his tank count was already taken down earlier, so he's forced to just split, and split more, and his splits are fine. But his overall game is not. And Rogue will win very convincingly for game number 2 to tie things up. And I gotta imagine there was some amount of boosting that happened with the Zerg player grabbing the gold base. Half gold, but still, that early on. So we've had 2 games that were decided fairly early on. Let's see what game 3 has in store. In the bottom left of ley lines, it is Byun. Top right, it is Rogue. So, Byun gets the greediest thing possible, I think, for a Terran. Pretty sure about that one. There was once upon a time a 3cc after barracks, not factory, but that's I don't even think it really works as a build anymore. It's not even streamlined anymore. So the greediest thing a Terran could do in game 1, and then the game 2, Rogue kind of did the greediest thing a Zerg could reasonably do, I suppose. I mean, getting the natural that has half gold is a pretty big boost. Getting his third base up without interruption. The Banshees really failing at their job, with the first one being almost a complete failure. Then I think it could have still been a scary game for Rogue up against an 8-Rax, even though he was the one that was kind of supercharged that game. But Byun's position, maybe a little overzealous. You know, the first one could see how that's abusive, but Rogue was really, he'd been ready for, you know, at least 30 seconds, I think, to actually handle that push. And then it was about how much could the Terran trade out. Do they save the Marines in the medevac? Do the tanks get a couple of Baneling shots that are pretty good? And does one tank, you know, kind of take forever to kill? And it was a pretty quick and easy cleanup. Double medevac drop, not a fearsome thing. Rogue took care of that, no problem, and still had leftovers to go deal with the follow-up push. And that follow-up push, the second push, I think is really where you could just tell that Byun had no steam. The second push being an utter failure, kind of going on that creep, sieging up on creep with the Zerg player not at all exhausted. Sometimes you can do that. You can push up aggressively because the Zerg player goes, oh shit, I don't have enough Banelings, I didn't have enough Lings, my larva was a little low, what have you. But that was absolutely not the case. Rogue, even having that double macro hatchery in the main base, was totally prepared to just swell on Lings. Now we have another build coming out here for Byun. So we did the 3cc on location first game, sorry. That's kind of clever, but a regular build as far as that goes. Second game, very regular thing, very regular. Third game, he's going to bring out his CC first. Now, sometimes when he does the CC first into a 2-1-1, which seems to be the case here at the second barracks, this actually can lead into a pretty fearsome tank push. It's kind of quick. And that would be very different, I think, from the previous two games, which, as far as the pacing goes, like, the pacing was faster for Byun in the first game because of his opener. But the whole idea of Byun's build was very similar in both games. But this, if he is going to go for some type of two-base attack, already doing a two-base 2-1-1 is already going to kind of really change up the flow of this TvZ. Because really, when you're only anticipating Hellions and Banshees, you, as a Zerg player, have probably practiced against that a million times. It's still the most common thing to do. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes Zerg player can deflect that so easily. They have everything lined up. Cross their T's, dotted their I's. The 2-1-1 fell into that trap a long time ago. That is the trap that the Zerg player knows it's on the way and has perfected the way to defend it. They don't over-defend, they don't under-defend. And so that fell out of fashion. We had the 3cc 2-1-1 version come into play, and that was better. But even that, you know, wasn't so much about the first two medevacs doing anything. It was about maybe some of the clever follow-ups that could happen. If you go back to a two-base 2-1-1, sometimes because it is the abnormal thing to do, that is what shocks the Zerg player, so they're preparing for Hellions. Now, in this case, that's obviously Salt Marines, so he's not preparing for Hellions. But nonetheless, because this is not as practice as it once was for the Zerg player, we do have some Zerg players mess up against Byun's 2-1-1. Even though you could really just dig deep into your history, right, and just be like, okay, well, it's going to hit at 5 minutes, and then it's, it could follow up with 2-base, or it could follow up with 3cc, I should go check that, and then, if I have enough Queens and enough Lings, I don't need any Banelings. But it's the change-up that can really throw some Zerg players off. Now, I'm looking at the Zerg situation this time around. Rogue seems to be doing everything he needs to do against 2-1-1 since scouting the Marine number. That's all you need to see was the Marine number. That's all you did. And +1 Carapace faster seems to be the goal here. That's one of the first things people figured out for this. Second thing was, like I said, enough Queens with Lings only for the first double drop. That's all you actually need. To make a Baneling nest and make Banelings right now would be overkill, be over-defending. And that has always been the trick about the 2-1-1, especially if it's a two-base follow-up, is that the Zerg player can sometimes over-defend and not be able to sustain as long as the Terran player. They're just going to be relentless in their attacks. So that's the trick right now. Presumably, nothing happens with the 2 medevacs, but an Overlord, a couple of creep timbers do die. Did not supply block Rogue, though, and he's already replacing them. The next step is the follow-up. Is it the fast 3rd medevac on the way trying to reinforce here, or is it a 2 base, or is it a 3rd CC? Rogue does not know that right now. If he scouted the front, it'd be only supply depots. That's not a hint. The 3rd CC could be in the main, and there could still be double engineering base somewhere else. And that's the other way you can find out this is a 2 base, is if there's only a single engineering bay. That's not something that Rogue can easily do, and he does not have Overlord speed, so it's not going to happen anytime soon. He does have a couple of Lings waiting for the push out of tanks. That would be his actual scouts on what is happening. And it could still be difficult to defend. Baneling Nest is almost done, so Banelings will be available. Baneling speed, much farther off, though. The layer did finish maybe 20 seconds ago, so could have arguably been better timed. Gas is also surprisingly low. I do wonder if he was later to his gas, or maybe saturating his gas. And I'm worried about the amount of Banelings that he can make as we get into the actual push. Then you do kind of need some Banelings at the very least. But 4 or 6, okay, there we go. 8 is a little better. 8 Banelings better. Rogue actually looking to buy some time with a run by, but supply depots are up and reinforcements are there. Now going to turn this into a potential surround. Is he timing this out correctly, though? The Banelings are just not going to contribute, man. And the Queens, well, they are tanking the tank damage on the backside. The Banelings are actually able to threaten the Marines. And that ended up being quite a good cleanup. That was just so much army. It's not as convincing as last game. Last game, Rogue was also on, 70-plus drones, eventually into 80, all the bases, all the hatcheries, Baneling speed was finishing, double upgrades, what have you. This game, he is still only on 49 drones. This is now the play for the Terran player, is to exhaust the Zerg player. Get them when they just don't have enough Lings, they don't have enough Banelings. The Queens eventually start to fall as well, and they're kind of time buyers right now. They just are good at tanking with all the transfuse they have, but eventually they'll fall, and we know what happens when a Zerg player runs out of Banelings in particular. That's when the Terran can overwhelm. Baneling speed is now done. This is going to be entirely or almost entirely off of creep. Nice focus fire on the Banelings to the right side. That is dangerous news for Rogue. In fact, that could be fatal news for Rogue. He does still have a couple of Banelings left over. A scan ahead reveals that you can't blitz into the Zerg player right now, but that was a good attack from Byun. No doubt about that. That's when you really start to worry for the Zerg player. And now we have Lings catching some of the Marines on the low ground, not quite catching the medevac with the Queens. Another thing the Queens are good for, to be fair. But that's still a decent amount of army left over. Certainly enough to stay put and allow the reinforcements to come to them. No run-by attempted. Freedom for Byun to send over his reinforcements. Now targeting this kind of 4th/5th. Rogue has a 5th on the way on the other side, and you'll have to use that as well. Well, at least he would if he had enough drones, but doesn't have enough drones to saturate 4 bases. Kind of attempted to save that base, but it really wasn't worth it. Not nearly enough. Kind of cute spore crawler that was probably built earlier on. Going to be obliterated, not going to be helpful. Banelings did crash through the supply depots. Rogue a little desperate to run by here. I think it is probably his only good plan left. Attacking into now the entire Terran force with all the reinforcements. Just doesn't look like it's going to work. He does not have enough army. He's going to try once again to come in with a surround, which worked out initially. But I think he's in even a worse position this time around. Comparatively, the armies are only 9 armor supply difference, but when you really look at the context of the match, the tanks sieged up in great positions. 3 of them available now, not just 1. The Marines off of creep as well. That 75 army supply I don't think actually means as much. He's going to try and go for it. Banelings will be able to make some connections, actually. In fact, more connections than I anticipated. The medevac's forced to pick up what they can, but now they're full up. Sorry, guys. This is not all of Byun's army. However, it will save 2 medevacs worth of units, but then his reinforcements went over to the left. Rogue going to have to respond here, because these 4th bases might not have a lot of drones on them as he desperately tries to get his drone count up higher. He actually managed to fit in a couple, so he's going up past 60 right now. But it's also important for his macro. He might not be able to produce enough Lings. He's actually missing some injects right now, too. That could be a major problem. That could be the problem. Some clever position on the tank here. He can back away into with 3 medevacs. He can pick up all the Marines as well. So this is relatively danger-free, unless he messes up his micro. And the Queens are targeting the medevacs as they should. Still alive, however, providing that threat is quite important. A little focus fire here from Byun, because why not? It's not actually the best that we've ever seen from him. Note that Byun is starting to exhaust his main base resources. He will have the ability to lift, but then that would make a very, very vulnerable third, which Rogue should take advantage of. Rogue playing a little whack-a-mole Zerg at this point because he is starting to bank up those minerals. He doesn't have enough larvae to produce as much as he needs. If he had 800 extra minerals in Lings and maybe a handful of Banelings, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. But instead, he is forced to use it else in other ways. And one of those ways is, I guess, just playing the whack-a-mole. Just getting hatcheries when and where he can. Queens also would be some use of the minerals. And it's better than nothing. A bank is the worst thing you can have. Liberator is not going to find any success. Little distraction, perhaps. Rogue is back to paying attention on the front lines, though. The tank on the low ground is still there. 3 tanks once again, well-positioned. Creep spread getting denied. Double drop still forcing some attention away. Looks like it was finally cleaned up, so Rogue can now focus entirely on the main force, but the supplies are not painting a pretty picture for Rogue right now. He is down about 20 supply, down 30 in the army. The upgrades also have equalized. I guess they've always kind of been equal, kind of 1-1 versus +2 and all that, but now we do have Rogue with 1-2 and Byun with 2-1-1. He actually managed to fit in the vehicle tank attack, so these tanks have been a little more helpful. Marines are going to actually catch the attempted run-by of Rogue. That was just a waste of units. Probably hoping the third was vulnerable, was on location. Not quite. We're getting there, but off timing on that one. Rogue manages to get another 4th base up in the nick of time as he can saturate it because he's running out of minerals everywhere else. And he did add those extra drones, to be fair. But shot back down below 60 thanks to a couple of drone kills. He is running out of steam. And this base, not exactly an easy one to have. This is a wonderful position for the Terran player. The tank on the low ground here. Oh, it's so abusive. Oh, and a big drop into the main base. Usually I'm not a fan of the Doom drop in this matchup, but this actually is going to work out, I think. Banelings will make the connections. Tanks will be left by their lonesome. Maybe that wasn't the best. Maybe it wasn't the worst. Maybe it was mediocre. Maybe it's just enough. 4 Marines manage to survive. 1 medevac apiece for them. They're going to go after the drones. Rogue desperately needing whatever he can muster. I was hoping that would be cleaned up lickety-split. Instead, it barely wasn't. Little distraction, however, so Byun does lose some Marines, but Rogue is starting to fall apart. He really needed that 4th base. At the end of the day, he really just needed that 4th base. So even if this drop happened or not, the 4th base being denied super easily is the biggest problem, I would say. His replacement 4th did not come down in the nick of time, so his drones are super oversaturating his bases. Some SCVs did go down to a run-by that I missed, but it's not equivalent. We know that Byun can still throw down a couple of mules if he really needed to. It looks like he's saving up scans, however. Totally focused on the aggression and knowing that he's not desperate for minerals. If he can produce however many Marines he can produce, right? Then that's all he needs. And actually, he's adding in a couple of Marauders. Widowmine's also making an appearance, something that Rogue hasn't had to deal with quite yet. Could actually surprise him. 12 SCVs going down this time to Rogue's run-by. This is getting... It's getting kind of chaotic on both sides. Byun, I thought was in a position where this would snowball in his favor, but he was running out of his 2-base economy. His 3rd CC economy, if you call it that. Anyway, it's not consistent. Rogue is hanging on to some type of consistency with his 4th base. Just barely hanging on, but he is. So an influx of minerals goes his way. He actually is mining more than his opponent because Byun is not dropping the mules all the time. Now he has, as he lost those SCVs, but you can see even with the mules, he's not making enough money to beat Rogue. To make Marines and Marauders, he is making enough money, and that is ultimately what I think this is going to come down to. Byun, as long as he doesn't take Banelings to the face, which he kind of did right there, a little bit, then he will win out the war. Drop goes in on the top side, kills a couple of drones as well. We had the intentional dropping of Marines. That's what we heard of the Banelings exploding. 1 Marine for a Baneling. Probably worth it. I mean, both of them are so low in economy. But probably worth it. Banelings are expensive. It's the funniest, desperate drop, man. It's hanging on. It's like, I got this, buddy. Medevac, good target fire from Rogue. He's going to go down. Byun, though, on the forefront of the 4th base, is getting denied so far, having to deal with a run-by once again on his 3rd. 8 more SCVs do go down, and he's not replacing them too quickly. He's replacing some. I think the goal is just to have about a base and a half of saturation, actually, for the Terran SCV count, but more than that, not super necessary. The natural also is probably going to try and take a base. This is as scrappy as you can get. Rogue, pretty desperate for a real connection, though. A real human connection. A real Marine connection. He wants these Banelings to finally capture all these Marines that are leaving themselves a little vulnerable. The Marauders are supposed to be on the front lines tanking. Instead, they're trapped by Lings, but it's 2-2 versus 2-2, and, well, frankly, Marauders don't die that quick to Lings or Banelings. Medevacs are getting, well, the Medevac with the units are getting low. And we can see that what was a 20 supply lead earlier on, or about 17, I think, is actually dipped down. And we really do have to consider that a lot of the supply right now is in Medevacs. Medevacs do not win games. Most of the time. Although you can do some real fancy stuff with the micro, but most of the time they're not going to win games. Byun has not gotten that one punch that he was hoping for. Every time he was trying to get on the front lines, have his Widow Mines burrowed, have his Marauders on the front, Marines pulled back off of creep. He has been caught by surprise. He has been overly aggressive, what have you. Finally getting into a more perfect Terran engagement position. The Widow Mines there to fall back to. The Marauders tanking the Banelings. Rogue is very much intentionally targeting those Marines, something that Byun was a little late to realizing, but picked up at the last seconds. He has taken care of most, if not all, of Zerg's Banelings, and I think this might be the death push. It's got to be kind of for Byun, who is down to 9 SCVs. His 3rd CC, God, again, not a 3rd CC. His natural command center lands back down. We could have a couple of mule drops. That's something we got to do, and actually Rogue is going to tap out. He's just without any army. He was at a 1/3 of the army supply, finally completely exhausted. But it got closer than I ever thought it would. I really thought Byun's army was going to win. Eventually it did, but Rogue made this game maybe 5 minutes longer than I anticipated. What a scrappy game. GG.